What's going on, you guys, and welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to be kicking off like another mini series using the Python language to create a Twitter bot. And this Twitter bot we'll deploy onto Heroku so that we're not just leaving it sat on our computer. It can just continue to run like on a another server. So what this Twitter bot will do is we'll first actually scrape quotes or famous quotes from this Goodreads website. And as you can see, there's a bunch of kind of different categories. One being philosophy, we could have poetry quotes or live quotes. So there's a large variety, and some of these names you may recognize. So we'll collect these quotes and store them into a JSON file. And from there, our Twitter bot will look into this JSON file and then tweet a random one or some quote based on what kind of conditions we give it. And also, just to kind of add some more flavor to our Twitter bot, we'll also be making use of the Unsplash API so that we can fetch like high quality images, and we can then tweet those too, as there are a few bots out there that do that, and they're quite like enjoyable or quite interesting to follow. For example, like we could look up like philosophy related images. So if we're tweeting like philosophy tweets, then maybe a philosophical image or something related to that topic might be cool to add as well. Or there's some great ones on like history. And like there is a lot of like great high quality images here, so that's why it's quite great to just use this API. So to kind of begin, we'll go ahead and create our or set up our project and make the necessary installations. And for this video, we'll focus solely on scraping quotes from this website. So to begin with, let's hop over into our like command line and make sure you're inside the folder or the directory in which you want to create your project. So I'm in one called TwitterBot. And then here, let's set up our virtual environment, and then open up our like preferred text editor, in my case Visual Studio. So the first thing is Python 3 -m venv, and as soon as that's complete, we'll have this ven file. If you've named it ven, I usually call it that, but you'll see this, and that will have the virtual environment. And then finally, let's just create our source folder. So this is where we'll just write our Python code, and then open up Visual Studio Code or any text editor that you prefer. So to begin with, in our source directory, I don't know if this is 100% clear to you, but in here, we'll create our init __init __.py file, which of course will be empty. And then, actually, let me just get rid of that. And then we'll go ahead and create our scraper file. And this is where all the like scraping will be done. Scraper.py, like so. So we need to go ahead and make some installations. I'm just going to open up the terminal here, which will set up. So this brackets with this venv, like VS Code has automatically activated the virtual environment. If you don't know how to do that, or if you've forgotten, like I always do, what you need to type in is source venv bin activate, and then hit enter, and you should see something similar to what I have. So the first thing we want to do is, let me just move this over. The first thing we want to do is install Beautiful Soup. So I always forget like the install Beautiful Soup Python. And I always forget this command, or this installation command. So we can just take this and ensure that you have your virtual environment active. Then all you have to do is just paste that in, and it will install Beautiful Soup. The next thing is the requests, the request library, which I think does come built in, but I always just do this anyway. Yep, just install that. And yeah, so these are the two libraries we need for creating our scraper. And the first thing we want to do is go ahead and, well, first look at the URL where we're scraping from. So the nice thing about Goodreads is that the only thing that changes is the final endpoint, or like the final /. So in this case, live quotes, we have this, it ends with /life. If you can, I don't know if it will allow me to zoom in that area. But if we go to something like poetry quotes, then we'll see this /poetry. Everything else is still the same. So based off that, we know, like, okay, the only thing that's changing, or the only variable really, is this poetry, or this final end tag to the endpoint. So what we can do is, let's go to another page. So instead of poetry, let's look at, I don't know, the knowledge quotes. Let's have a look at that one. So let's copy this URL and head back and go ahead and create our, a function that creates our URL. So let's go ahead and call it create URL, and we know that it will change. So we want to like make it so it's kind of a bit more dynamic, and we'll pass in the tag, which will be a string, and this again will just return a string, and we can do return and then format it, and then remove the last part of that URL and just throw in tag, like so. So that will create our URL. And for our tags, let's create a list of all the kind of tags that we want to make use of. So I'm going to create another file called constants.py, and that will just store any kind of constants that we will make use of in our code base. So in our case, we'll do tags, and we can do knowledge, like based on this endpoint knowledge. We can do philosophy. Oops, let's take philosophy, and make sure it's exactly the same as the tag field or tag parameter in the URL, because otherwise it won't be able to find it. We can do another one, let's say wisdom, copy that, and oops, what is going on? Wisdom, and let's just do one last one. Let's do life quotes. So this one has final one being life, and just throw that in there too. And that's really it. Like, this file is going to be pretty simple, as it will just store variables. And now we can go ahead and, so that, yeah, each tag will replace this. We'll have like a for loop somewhere which does that. But we can go ahead and let's import the modules that we installed earlier. So the first one we can import, is the requests module. So import requests as underscore requests, and import bs4, so beautiful soup 4, as underscore bs4. And let's create a function which gets us our, like, the page itself. So define underscore get page. This will take in a URL, which will be a string, and it will return a beautiful soup object, like so. And we can say the page equals the request.get, and then the URL. So that will just get the raw page itself, and then we can pass this into soup. So we can create a soup object, which will be underscore bs4 dot beautiful soup, pass in the page dot content, so the content that comes with that page, And finally, we want to let it know in terms of how we want it passed, so as HTML. So do inner string html.parser. And last but not least, just return the soup object. So yeah, that's the page. Now we want to kind of go ahead and actually fetch the quotes that we want. So let's inspect the page. So I'm looking at the life quotes, and you can use this kind of select an element button here when you're in the inspect mode on Chrome. So if I click on like any arbitrary quote, let's do the first one. The quote is wrapped inside this div element, which has a class quote text. So you can see here, like if I just make this a little bit bigger, you can see the quote itself, in this case by Marilyn Monroe. And then within this kind of div element, you have the author as well. So yeah, Marilyn Monroe, and that's thrown inside this div element that has the class author or title. So the two things we want to look out for, or the two classes we want to look out for, is the quote text and the author or title, as we also want to scrape the author of each quote too, as it's always nice to have like the reference for each of them when we tweet it. So what we can do is use this function called the find all function that comes with Beautiful Soup, and we can say find all the elements that have this class name quote text, and every quote on this page or on each of these pages has this class quote text. So we can go ahead and implement this find all function. So I'm not going to write this in a method just yet. I just want to kind of experiment a bit with what we've got. So let's get our URL, create URL, and let's just throw in like life. This is a simple one to type. So it will look at this page here. And then let's create the page. So we'll assign this to the soup variable, get page, and throw in the URL. And we can say print soup dot find all, and we're looking for the ones with the class quote text, and be sure to add the underscore after class, as the word class itself is reserved. And in here we can do quote text like so, and make sure that matches up with the class name quote text. So let's go ahead and run this. I'm going to go back into my terminal, make some space, and do python scraper.py and see what we get. So yeah, we get this huge list, and the reason why I'm saying it's a list is because at the end we see this bracket, which kind of infers that it's a list, and it comes with a lot of data that we don't really need, but it also comes with the quote, and we want to kind of extract this quote here. So in order to do that, we can use this other kind of property that comes with this with each like element inside our list. So let's go ahead and throw all this list inside of a variable. We can say raw quotes, and let's write a for loop which goes through each of the raw quotes. So for quote in raw quotes, we can do print quote and then the property contents like so. And we should get something very similar to what we had already. So just run that. And yeah, we get a list. Again, very busy, but we can extract the quote itself. And to extract that, we can just do contents bracket 0, and that will get the quote itself. And the reason why it seems a bit kind of weird in the way in which we get this, there are of course probably many ways to get this quote itself, and that's because there's a bunch of there's a break line, and then there's this other element, the author. We just want the quote itself and ignore the others. So the first element will be this quote, this text here. So in the Marilyn Monroe case, this "I'm selfish and patient and a little insecure," that quote, and yeah, we just want that string or this quote. And that's why we're indexing by 0, as that will be the first element. So let's save this and just go over and clear it and run that again, python scraper.py. And there we go, we get all our quotes. And these quotes still have like a bunch of like, the reason why it's printing out like this is because there are a lot of like new lines and tabs being entered along with the quote itself. So there's a lot of white space here, a white space there, white space underneath, and we want to get rid of all that because we don't want to store that. We just want this quote or quote in that format. So to do that, it's very simple. We can just go ahead and type in strip, which will remove any white space around the string. Let's run that now. And there we go. We have our quotes and it's just cleaned up. So we just get the quote itself and ignore any white space that comes with it. So we can use that now and start creating some functions that will like allow us to scrape the data that we want from each of these pages. And the first one, let's go ahead and create our like the main function on this in this file. So we'll just call it scrape quotes. And notice how I haven't put an underscore here, as scrape quotes will be used elsewhere. And we want to throw this into a list. So I'm just going to call it collection, which will just be a list. And the way this list will like be modeled is we'll have the list like that. And then we'll have each element will be a dictionary where we'll have like the key quote. Sorry, not quotes, but quote, and then some quote, the author, which will be some author, and we'll also store the genre or the tag it's related to. So I'm going to call it genre, as I think that's just a bit nicer for us. But yeah, it'll have this style, and yeah, we can go ahead and just write that in. So let's loop through each of our tags. So in our constants, let's go ahead and import this constants file. So we can say import constants as underscore constants. And for some reason, it's not picking up that, but it should be fine. And we can say for tag in underscore constants dot tags, we can first of all fetch the URL, and that will be create URL and then throw in the tag. And then we can create the soup object, or the beautiful soup object, which is get page, throw in the URL. And we can say, we can use this find all as row quote. So we just take that. Actually, I'm going to cut that and then paste it into here. So yeah, very similar to what we already did. I'm just going to delete the lines of code that we don't need. And as each page will have a list of quotes, we have to write another for loop which will iterate through each of those quotes. So what we can do is write in for quote in raw quotes. We want the text or the quote itself and the author. So let's write another function where we'll make use of this quote.contents as well. So let's do extract quote and author, like so. Oops. And then that'll take in a quote. So what we can say is the text, or let's call it quote text to make it a bit more explicit in terms of what we're getting. And we'll say quote dot contents and the first element, and just strip any white space around it. And then finally, let's get the author. Now remember back here, with the author is wrapped inside this span element, and it has the class of author or title, and that's what we want. We want the text that's within that. So this one's pretty easy to get, unlike the quote text. So we can use that. Let's just copy the author or quote title, and we can say the author equals the quote, and then find the class or the text that has this class author or title. We want the text from that, and we can just strip any white space that comes with it. And lastly, let's just return quote text and the author. So this will be a tuple or tuple. So now we're back in our scrape quotes. We can use this extract quote and author. I'm just going to remove that for loop that we had. But now we can say text or quote text and author equals extract quote and author, and we throw in the quote. Next, let's define the kind of the dictionary that we'll throw into our collection list. So I usually like using the dict object, or like to define a dictionary, but I think just to be extra clear, we'll use it with the curly brackets. So we can say the quote is the quote text, the author is the author, and finally let's store the genre too. So we can say, or the tag, genre equals tag, and that's the data, and we can then just throw that into collection.pend, or the collection list, and append that data. And finally, let's just return the collection. Now let's go ahead and try this scrape quotes. So print scrape quotes like so, and see what we get. So back in the terminal, just clear it. And let's just run it. Hopefully no errors. And it also might take a bit longer than usual because we're going through 4 different pages. But here we have it. We have, if we go to the top, we have quite a few quotes. So the first quote is, a friend is someone who knows, okay, yep. I don't want to read all of these quotes. And we have the author, and we also have the genre too. Then we have the next quote, and then so on and so forth. And so yeah, we have quite a variety. And if you want more, or if you want different tags, you can always extend on this tags list. But yeah, I'm just going to stick to 4 for this video. But that's really it when it comes to scraping it. We can now go ahead and create our something that will write to a JSON file, so we can store all these quotes, and we don't have to keep on going and fetching from the website. There are a number of reasons why. One could be that, what if Goodreads is down, or what if they change the way in which their data is shown, or the HTML class names on their website, and we don't really want to be at the mercy of all that. So that's why I want to store all this in an events, and not an events, in a quotes.json file. So to store the quotes that we've collected, just as a kind of quick recap, the quotes are the collection of quotes is a list of dictionaries where the dictionary have 3 keys: the quote, the author, and the genre. So that's just one thing to keep in mind, and that's how our JSON file will look as well. So we can create another file called we can call this the collect quotes.py file. And this will make use of the JSON library, which comes with Python. So import JSON as _JSON. And we also want the scraper that we built. So import scraper as _scraper, like so. I hope this is spelled like this. I'm always unsure if it has 2 P's or 1 P. So hopefully this doesn't spell. I think scrapper is with 2 P's. But yeah, this is just me overthinking. But if name equals main So this file will just be something that we run if we want to collect quotes. And we can say the quotes equals the scraper dot scrape quotes function that we created. So this will bring us a list of dictionaries. And then we can open up a file called quotes.json, and the mode will be writing to it. And we can just say as quotes file, like so. And then we can use the json.dump function, and we can just pass in the quotes. So our huge list, and we want to throw this into the quotes file, and we want to ensure that ASCII is false. I don't think this really matters, but I like to have that there as yeah, like it doesn't really matter. You don't have to include that in. But now we have that's all it takes to kind of just take our quotes that we scraped and throw them into a JSON file. We can go ahead and run this. And also, yeah, when we run this, you'll see like a new file being created, which is our quotes.json file. Let's clear it. So yeah, we have this right now, and we'll see a new one being our JSON file. We can do Python. Instead of the scraper, we can run the collect quotes. It'll take a few seconds, but once that's done, we will see our quotes file. And there we go. We just saw that pop up. And if I do ls, we have this quotes.json file. So we can open it up, and I'm just going to hit Control S so it formats it nicely. But yeah, we have all our quotes. So we have this, a friend is, yeah, by Albert Hubbard. It's this, like the quotes are a bit different. So if you didn't have ensure ASCII like set to false, then you will see like the ASCII format for it. It might be better to have it on true rather than false, like I have. But yeah, if there's any issues that show up like later on in this series, then I can always go back and fix it. But yeah, so that's really it. Like we have our quotes, and yeah, we can go ahead now and in the next videos create our Unsplash code, or connect to the Unsplash API, and see how we can download images and then later on to use them with our Twitter bot to post both images and text. But yeah, hopefully this video gave you some insight on how to do some scraping and how to save it into a JSON file. But other than that, I look forward to seeing you in my next video. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. And yeah, I have a Discord server, so if you have any video recommendations or if you just want to say hi, feel free to pop in. The link for that Discord server is in the description. But other than that, stay healthy, stay safe, and I hope to see you in the next video.